Now, in my first lecture, I try to give a general frame about ethics. I distinguished, buenos dias, okay, good. I distinguished, I tried to convey an idea of what ethics is, the object of ethics. Ethics is an institution, it's not something magic. It's an institution very similar in a sense to language, as we have many different languages. We have different ethical codes, and no one owns a language, even if every one of us, each of us, is participating to a language. The language is something that was before us and will be after we passed away. So that's language is another institution, and it's a very general institution. It's the institution which uh, does very many different things. Uh, we communicate, we inform about facts, we give information, we express our feeling, our wishes, we put questions, we give orders. We use language in a very many different ways. And one way is to have a language of morals, as the title of a famous book of the 50s of the last century was titled. So ethics or morality is an institution. And we have to study the characteristic of this institution, and it is normative, and it is uh, it is followed spontaneously, and because we are really convinced that it is right and good to follow the morality, what we think it is just, right, dutiful. That is the idea of morals. Now, in the last 50 years, I say 50 years, could be 70, could be 100, could be 30, it depends on places, people, and time. But certainly in the last few decades, we had a, a great process which is called secularization, as disenchantment of the world, and secularization change completely the idea, the ideal, because morality is an institution which is normative and aims, it is followed spontaneously in order to reach social coordination for a goal which is reckoned to be the most important issue of our life. And that is what makes ethics so important in any personal life. Okay, this is. The problem is in the last 50 years, we changed the main goal of our lives because secularization, as disenchantment of the world, is a process which makes irrelevant metaphysical truth, makes irrelevant the idea that there is another life, and made, in a sense, irrelevant the idea that we are living in this life in order to reach the paradise, something in the afterlife, and the idea that there is a hell with a with punishments that are going on forever. This idea of an eternal punishment becomes meaningless. It is something that for many people is in the West, at least, or in some part of the West, is becoming irrelevant. For the first time in the world, non-believers or atheists are so many, about 1 billion of people, 1 miliardo of people are atheists. It is the fourth, let's say, most numerous religious standing. But it is not only a matter of numbers. It's a problem of frame of mind, of conceptual, of paradigm. As often we say, the paradigm is that when we are sick, we don't call any longer a priest or a religious something to prepare to dying, but we call a doctor. And that means that in emergency situation is not any longer a religion what is helping. It's a sort of technical and scientific fact. This is to say that we have two different kinds of ethics. We still have the religious ethics, which was traditional since many hundreds of years ago, and we have this new ethics, which is a secularized ethics, for which the goal
ciao, dimmi.
That we have to reach, there is
Ho una
someone
lezione,
with
dimmi,
a microphone which is open and in greetings his mother or her mother.
No, mi posso sapere.
Please, okay, let's say here that we try to, okay. And this is the issue. Now we have one kind of ethics according to which the goal is to reach the paradise, the afterlife. So attending moral norms is the instrument to go to reach the afterlife goal. On the other hand, we have this other idea of ethics for which we have to reach self-realization in this world. So, for instance, let's take an example, and then we start speaking about artificial intelligence and ethics. But to take an example which very alive, very contemporary, how to die. According to the religious ethics, it seems, because in the future it might change, I don't know exactly, but it seems that you have to wait the natural uh, the natural evolution of the process and to accept death when death comes, not to anticipate in order, and if there is some suffering, according to the traditional idea, this suffering is functional, is to be offered as a kind of pain in this world in order to prevent other pains in the other world. This is, generally speaking, the traditional idea. On the other hand, if you have the idea of self-realization, even the end of life, it's a part to, you decide when to die in order to maintain the integrity of your life. And in order not to accept and not to be, to undergo to the idea, to the sickness or to the what comes when you become older, that you cannot move and you lose dignity because you have no control on your body as you did when you were younger. And this is the idea to maintain the dignity or the integrity of your life. Older people say, I would like to be remembered as I was when I was in force and fully participating. This is the distinction for which in these times in the world there is so much debate on euthanasia or assisted suicide or voluntary death, as it is called. And certainly both the idea that we are living longer on one hand, and on the other hand, that we have changed this idea of how to maintain integrity. And the most important thing becomes to self-realization for many people. These two steps are giving the new attitude toward death. This is to say that we are living in a world in which we have two different ethics. Then we have many more, of course, but these are the two big standards, models, which are opposed. Now, we are coming to artificial intelligence. How to use ethically artificial intelligence, and which ethical, what are the problems that artificial intelligence raises? Of course, My colleagues possibly have spoken to you about problems of, for example, privacy, or the problems uh, mm, of having biased, or the problem of equality. Today, I want to focus my lecture on only one point. Let's say privacy, but not only privacy. What will be a world in which artificial intelligence is attending our life and is always with us? Because this gives a new, is not only a new instrument that we have, but having artificial intelligence is a kind of having the another self of ours, which records everything we do. This, and I don't know if artificial intelligence will become so powerful to interpret our thinking and our intentions. This is another problem. I am not so acquainted with artificial intelligence to know it, but certainly artificial intelligence will be able to record all our action. And this is a problem, because an ethical problem, because artificial intelligence, in a sense, will become the substitute of what it was God, according to religious, to Christian, for instance, but I think also Islamic or Jewish perspective. In a Christian perspective, God was everywhere and could see everything. According to the traditional idea of ethics, God's eye was looking at every single action, and also was inspecting our hearts and intentions and every single thought that we could have. Now, artificial intelligence will record everything we do. And that is an important, is a sort of, will become a kind of omnipresent cautions, remembering what we do. Usually, we forget many things, but artificial intelligence will remind us this thinking. And the second problem that will come out, is who owns all these notions. Because once you did it, an action in your private setting, and only God or the angel that was supervising you knew it. But now if it is registered somewhere in the cloud, in wherever you want, it is registered. And who knows who owns all this property? This is a problem of privacy, because certainly there are rules, legal rules, to protect privacy. But it is very different, the idea of protecting your privacy, let's say, naturally, and protecting it legally, because legal rules could be broken. In the other sense, it was a very natural protection. Natural means that no human could physically go against the limits of privacy. Now we are entering in a world in which everything will be known, at least in theory, and only the legal prohibitions, the legal barriers are blocking the idea. This, I think, is an important ethical problem, because in a sense, artificial intelligence, and this is something I want to discuss with you, and then I take an example and discuss the example. Artificial intelligence will substitute, in a sense, God's eye. We have abolished the religious ethics for the afterlife, and we have abolished the idea of having an angel which looks and help us, or should help us in our life in order to become a better person, but we will reintroduce this sort of metaphysical God's eye with the new technical stuff. And this is a problem, because let's take this example. When 50 years ago, when you went out of your home, of your house, you could go, let's say, to a station, a railway station. You had no smartphone, no phone with you. You went out, you could go to the station, you could go to the bus station or the train station. If you got a ticket at the train station, you would have paid in cash, money, no credit card, no registration, nothing. The ticket was written by hand from the official, and you said, I go to Milan, I go to Rome, whatever you wanted to. He wrote, he gave you the ticket. Of course, there was, on the ticket, there was no name of the person who bought the ticket. Once you had been on the train, no one else knew which train, which was the direction of the train. Your trip was completely private, was completely uh, um, supported by privacy. Privacy was a physical state that couldn't be uh, violated for physical reason, because no one could know the direction that you had chosen. Now the situation has changed radically, because any of us have a phone, and when you go out, they can control in which cell, or you are controlled in any way, which is the cell in which you are going. If you're going to the railway station or to a bus station and you buy a ticket, you pay by credit card, they know the name, you have a fidelity card, they know exactly who you are, which train, which direction, everything is registered. But this is not only a problem of privacy, it's a problem of internal uh, registration. Let's think, when a baby at birth will be endowed with a chip, and every single action will be registered. This will become God, God's eye or something similar, because any single action is registered. When any single action, anytime the baby went, will go to a toilet or eat something, and what one eats, if a candy, if he drinks or smokes, hopefully when he's grown up a little bit, every single action will be registered. And this is exactly what in religious time God could do. And also, here we come with the decision that a person will take and how to register this issue. For instance, I mentioned before the program.
Oh,
There is a microphone which is open. I hope that the people closes it. And now this is the question, because before doing a further action, a new action, one can ask artificial intelligence and say, what did I say about this issue? Was I in agreement? Or at least sometimes we say something that we really don't know that we are holding a real position. We say, let's say, in between, just to say something, and then everything will be registered. And this, I think, is having a kind of external conscience for us. Now, and then I let the last part of this lecture, I take this example, which is already in being discussed in the literature, and then, if you like, we can discuss. Let's take the example about the end of life. We have one problem concerning the end of life, how to die, is the idea of having records about the real will of a person. We have now the living will forms. In Italian is testamento biologico, but in other languages is living will. We can write something and we can have people testifying or that we didn't want to be supported by machines or so forth. But now artificial intelligence is used because in this lecture, for instance, as in many other lectures that I delivered, or many other conversations I had with friends and with my family, I expressed my views on the issue. And now all these things are recorded by artificial intelligence. Now, in the United States, which is a country that was a leader for this advanced directive, even now, after 50 years of debates and discussion about how to die, still 90% of the people don't have left records. The people and doctors have to struggle for decision on how to behave at the end of life. And now there is a program of artificial intelligence which reconstructs the will of a person by analyzing, for instance, the email of conversation on iPhone or any other forms. So this will be, or is supposed to be, a great help to doctors who can reach a reliable source of information about the will of a person. And that's is a sort of extraordinary help for the end of life decision. And possibly someone opens, if Stephanie Muratore, if it is that you want to make a question, it is welcome. Otherwise, no. Okay, if there is any question on the issue, I am open to accept and to respond, or to try to respond, to give an answer. But this is the ethical problem that I wanted to raise concerning artificial intelligence, which will become our technological quotients, recording everything we do, everything, I don't know, everything we think. This is more complex. to enter into thinking, but certainly we can register the action. And speaking or telling something is an action. If telling that I want to die with dignity is equivalent to thinking really that I want to die, it's a big problem, because of course someone can lie in telling things. It is well known that I say, I love you, but then one thing is to say the proposition, I love you. Another thing is to love indeed. And what is love is a problem, as every one of us knows. But anyway, certainly artificial intelligence can register the propositions, at least the linguistic act, and that is something. So, for instance, at the end of life, we can have a registration of our wills, and this will have a count. And of course, if I don't want that this will be known to some other people, how can I act about that? Those are ethical problems that we are going to face with artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence will completely modify our notion of privacy. And this is something that we have to deal with. I don't know exactly. The Artificial Intelligence Act of the European Union tries to protect privacy, but it is an old notion of privacy. The new notion will be completely different, and I don't know how this notion will be. I'm sure that is not any longer the notion that we had in the last century, in which privacy was a physical fact, while now it is only at most illegal, and I don't know whether a moral notion. So this is what I tried to convey for this lecture, and now I leave the last quarter, 15 minutes, 20 minutes to the discussion. There was a question in the chat. If you want to tell it, let's see. The idea of Alessio Cassinelli is that hope that will register all we do in order to prevent or detect diseases and live better. Okay, now then I give the floor to Claudia Nazzoni, but first I want to answer to Cassinelli. Because certainly we could live better. But let's say this example, which is very alive. We all know that smoking is dangerous for health. I speak of smoking tobacco, cigarettes, normal cigarettes. I don't want to enter with other smoking. But also we know that drinking wine or alcoholics is dangerous. Now, if we register that you drink wine or you eat fat foods which are unhealthy, are you free to do unhealthy things or not? And if you got a disease because of your lifestyle concerning eating, are you responsible for the disease or not? These are ethical questions. And it is not to have a control like Orwell, a control on everything of your life, which violates your freedom of behaving. This is one problem. I give the floor now to the someone had the raised hand. Please.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to actually make a similar point to the one the professor just made, because I think what Alessio Cassinellis is suggesting can be can actually lead to some sort of dystopian approach to medicine and to health. Right now, when somebody needs a transplant, for example, an organ transplant, their medical records are used to assess if they're eligible for the transplant, and if the person has some kind of heavy addiction, the transplant might be denied. And this is not something that is happening in the US. It is happening in Italy as well. This means that at some level, the state, the government, is deciding whether you deserve to live or not, based on your addictions, on your lifestyle or whatever. So what this could mean in a more in a future where we are more controlled, is that the government could be even stricter in the decision, in deciding who deserves to live and who deserves to die. And I think this is appalling in a sense. It might make sense in a utilitarian framework, but it doesn't meet the requirements of many other ethical frameworks. I don't know if this makes sense.
No, exactly. Thank you very much. Well, your name now,
It's Chiara.
Chiara. Chiara, you got exactly the problem I tried to raise. And we have Alessio siding on one part and you are siding on the other part. And because the issue is our freedom of behavior. Our freedom of behavior depends on ignorance of the mystery of life, or depends on something else. Because you got the example from transplantation, transplants of organs. Certainly, we should know that even in Italy, every day someone is dying for shortage of organs to be donated. In the United States, 20 people every day are dying waiting an organ which doesn't arrive. And this is certainly a problem for people who needs kidneys, who needs something. But then you say, well, well, mm, of course we are in a shortage situation, and so we cannot throw away organs, which are very precious. And certainly, if a person is addicted to something and spoils the organs, that couldn't be a good idea to give organs to those. But this is a more general problem, because think of your life. I mean, I'm already an old man, but you are younger. Every day you should do half an hour of running, physical exercise, and all of these exercises will be registered. And if you don't do it, in a sense, this is spoiling with your action. And this will give you example. If this is registered, this could be used for your working places promotion, because if you are keeping in good health, you will work more. And is it good to have all this registration or not? Casinelli says it's a dystopic viewpoint. My utopic viewpoint is to maximize human life, but the final choice must be human. Alessio, your answer is wonderful, but it's intrinsically tautological, because it depends on what you mean to be human. We have two different ideas of what means to be human. On one hand, be human, as Chiara said before, be human means to have the opportunity to say no to everything, and having this opportunity to be free to do even what is evil, and to be accepted even you are an alcoholic, addicted to alcoholics. And this means to be human, because humanity is not straightforward, but has nuances, has contradictions. And you can do something and also the opposite. And still you say, but I deserve to be loved. Even I know that I am failing, and so forth. This is something. On the other hand, there is another idea of humanity, which means that we should try to be rational, to be coherent, and to follow what we do. And this is a problem of artificial intelligence. Once we had God's eye, God was everywhere and followed us everywhere. Now we will have artificial intelligence, and this is the issue. We don't, it is something real which is public, because God spoke into the inner of our God, of our hearts, of our minds, and couldn't be known to other people. That was the interior troubles that we had. But now something is completely different. And that was a problem I wanted to point you out. Sorry for a minute. Someone is worried for signing the presence. I don't know whether there is something to sign. I'm sorry, I was asked yesterday to give this lecture by Professor Boella, as I said at the beginning, but I am sure that artificial intelligence will register your being here, and so there is a system for which you are already recorded, even if you don't sign. That is another side effect of being recorded. So anyway, Chiara, thank you for your intervention, which was very helpful. And now there is Ballestra. I agree with Simone. Maybe AI could be an extension of a more general problem. At present, it doesn't seem the problem. What do you think? Sport and physical data of millions of people are already stocked in database advent of the exactly. Well, this is the general perspective. When you go to have, and you have, I have myself this kind of can you see, of clock. So all the pressure, all my steps, where everything is a record. My heart beat, and certainly these trillion of data, about my life are recorded. This is physical data, but think when also other data will be registered. And of course, I tried to do it at when I was 70, so the first part of my life has gone. But your life is already registered by now. And think, when we will have beds recording when we are sleeping, also the blood pressure, when you sleep, when you go to the toilet, they make exams on everything. And this is, of course, it's a dystopic world that we are entering. But this is the world that theology attributed to God. And now we have the substitute of God in artificial intelligence. That is an ethical problem. Is it good or not? We have this paradox because secularization, in a sense, said God is not any longer necessary to explain life, because life can be explained scientifically. But now we reintroduce an artificial God. This is the dilemma on which I wanted to attract your attention, to focus your attention, because it's a kind of dilemma that we are entering. And so it is now noon. I don't know whether there is someone coming to replace me, but it was a pleasure to give you this lecture and to having the I didn't read the role of now is someone, Pitas, yes, it's you that are so.
Yes.
Thank you. In any case, there is someone who had meta-ethical and ontological questions, but I can see longer the tour, how can, well, you can, if you have any other question, you can send me an email to Maurizio.Mori, well, the other it, and then unito, unito.it. You can, or send an email to Guido, and Guido will turn then to me, and it might be that the next week I can be with you for a quarter of an hour in order to answer if are important questions. Thank you very much for attending. I leave the floor to my colleague, and thank you for Peter for continuing this lecture. Ciao to everyone.
Thank you very much, Professor Mori. Let me share my screen.
Yes.
So now, do you see my full screen and you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Ciao.
I suppose that I have an entire hour for my presentation, plus and including discussion. So my topic is quite controversial. It's about AI, war, and geopolitics. So first of all, we have to define what's AI, because many people think that AI is just ChatGPT. It is this, but it's not only this. So AI science and engineering, essentially, it's our effort to mimic human intelligence, possibly surpass it, and also mimic human interaction with the world. And classically, we have machine learning that thrived, and symbolic AI that did not deliver much. When we talk about AI these days, we mean machine learning, and in machine learning, we need data. Essentially, we measure things. We find numbers. For example, let's say we have a person, man or woman. We take her or his weight and height, and then we have two numbers. So myself is, let's say, 70 kilos, and my height is 1.7 meters. And once I do this, then I present a human person by two numbers, a vector. We call it vector in mathematics. And once we do this, then we can forget about reality, and we can live in vectorial spaces. This means we live in the world of numbers, and this has profound implications because everything is mathematized. Even language these days is mathematized, because ChatGPT is based on vectorial representation of words. And our data can have spatiotemporal structure. For example, if we measure the the euro USD exchange rate over time, and then we have a series of numbers, and this is a vector. Or if we have an image, then this image has, let's say, 48 megapixels. This means that we have 48 million dimensions. I remind you that humans live in a world with 4 dimensions, 3 spatial dimensions plus time. Now we are talking about 48 million dimensions. Of course, we have an exponential data increase, and we have to handle it. And this is not so easy. And in this sense, AI and machine learning are very important. It's the human response to handle the exponential data increase. So why we need more data? Because we live in a more complex world. Why we live in a more complex world? This is something that I'm writing a book about it. These days, it's a very big philosophical, epistemological, but also biological problem that is grounded on physics, biology, sociology, and so on. And luckily enough, in machine learning and in AI, we have operations that are easy to understand. For example, if we have images of 2 persons, then we can cluster them into groups. This is data clustering. Even elementary school students can understand what's clustering. Or we have data coming from 2 classes, for example, healthy humans and humans with COVID. Then we have medical measurements on them, and we identify them with spots on a plane, and then we can find a separating line that separates healthy persons from diseased ones. And this is what's supervised machine learning or classification. Again, it's a very simple concept that can be easily taught at elementary school level, and later on you can teach it using mathematics in high school, and of course you can teach the same things at the university level, as I do. In the past, we had symbolic AI that's based on symbols or ideas, and we do reasoning on them. Though this is very natural for humans, it's not so natural for machines. And though symbolic AI started early, back in the 1960s, it failed to deliver. Of course, humans continue working with reasoning, and they produce knowledge. What is knowledge? We don't know exactly, because there's no unique definition of knowledge. If we try to measure it somehow, for example, we can measure the Wikipedia articles, or we measure the research publications, then we see that knowledge increases linearly over time. This means that we live in a society of data rather than a knowledge society. So currently, AI revolution means machine learning. This means deep neural networks. For example, ChatGPT is based on GPT, which is a big deep neural network. And everything is related to artificial neural networks, which is a mathematical construction that tries to mimic biological neurons. We don't have just one artificial neuron. We have many layers of artificial neurons, as we have many layers of biological neurons in our brain. And intelligence comes out of network complexity. So this means that our brain neural network is very complex, with billions of neurons and trillions of synapses. And the same thing applies also to artificial neural networks. So the number of neurons is smaller. It's in the millions, let's say. And we can use one thing that's different than in the past, and it happened only recently, is that we can use AI nowadays not only to analyze reality, but we create a new reality. And this new reality is done through generative AI. For example, we create new text through ChatGPT and related large language models. We can create images that are completely artificial. And as you can see here, videos as well. This last wave of AI revolution was primarily founded on large language models. We use huge text for and huge computational resources to train those LLMs. And when this is done carefully, then we produce human-like text, smooth text. Though originally LLMs were not meant to be used for reasoning, they were just used to model the word sequence in a sentence. That was the essence of LLMs. Yet, once you start conversing with one of them, you start having the feeling that they have emotions and they think, though they don't. However, impression is equally important than reality in those cases, particularly for people that don't understand things. The advantages of artificial neural networks is that we can solve problems easily and with better accuracy than humans. The pitfalls is that we have too much energy needed for the training. They have poor explainability and so on. Now, regarding war, most of our new weapons are autonomous systems. So then this means that we have a merge of autonomous systems with artificial intelligence, and this is where we are right now. Autonomous systems are systems that operate using their own rules and laws. They are set by humans, but once they are set, then the autonomous systems follow them. They can understand the environment. They can operate for an extended period without human supervision. Essentially, they have a loop of perception and control. So a car, for example, understands the road conditions and then controls itself towards reaching its destination. Essentially, autonomous systems interpret the external situation. They interpret also their internal state, for example, their speed, and then they drive their actuators and they try to perform their task, for example, move from point A to point B. And in some cases, they are able to exploit, to explain why they have taken such an action. Here, for example, we have the diagram of a drone that can fly autonomously. They are intelligent drones because they have computational power on them and sensors, for example, cameras. We can have swarms of such drones that are used to perform a certain task. Nowadays, they are talking about drone swarms in the battlefield as well, as we are going to see. Then, of course, we have underwater vehicles that can be autonomous. Actually, there were such autonomous underwater vehicles even almost right after the end of the Second World War. We can build autonomous ships. There are autonomous ships these days, not that big, but there are. And of course, we have autonomous robots that can be used, for example, for search and rescue. If there is a bomb and you want to detonate it, you better send a robot rather than a human. And nowadays, artificial intelligence, this means machine learning, merges with autonomous systems, and then we have intelligent autonomous systems and intelligence is used both for environment perception, self-perception, and also then for autonomous system control. Now, what's the relation between all those things and war? War, as you know, is a continuation of politics by other means. We have three levels of command in war: strategic, operational, and tactical command. Science and technology always has been used at all three command levels. It's much more visible, of course, at the tactical level because then we deploy weapons. And science has been since long used in war technology. For example, Archimedes used mechanical claws and mirrors to destroy Roman ships in Syracuse. The Greek fire was used by Byzantines again to destroy ships, and of course, gunpowder has been invented by the Chinese, and it was a big weapon. However, we have subtler use of science as well. For example, cryptography is heavily based on number theory. This is mathematics, and we can also develop psychological warfare. What's the aim of the use of technology in the war? Of course, we want to maximize enemy damage and casualties and minimize own damage and casualties. And casualties is a very important aspect of war because soldiers and civilians pay victory or sometimes defeat by their lives. And of course, we have increased mortality in the case of wars of attrition, like in the First World War, or in asymmetric wars, or in civil wars that are particularly brutal sometimes. And we have different type of armies. In the past, we had mercenaries. Then we switched after the French Revolution to conscripted armies. Now we have professional armies. Essentially, they are mercenaries. It's a euphemism for mercenaries. And of course, the attitude towards life in war periods has changed over time. Nowadays, we have pacifist movements, we have intolerance to casualties and collateral damages. So then what's the solution? The solution is to fight the war with our soldiers. That's the dream of politicians and also of generals, to fight a war where we have no casualties. And to this end, we can use lethal autonomous weapons that are autonomous devices. They are autonomous systems. For example, we have autonomous drones, boats, anti-ship and anti-aircraft missiles, and we have loitering weapons. For example, we have a drone, it starts flying, it moves around, it tries to identify a target, and then it hits the target. That's a loitering weapon. Regarding target detection and firing, this can be manual, by an operator, or it can be fully automatic. Of course, there are ethical issues on this, but that's another story we can discuss. The semi-automatic autonomous weapons, they can be very cheap, and they are poor man's weapons. They can be used in asymmetric warfare. You know, nowadays, Yemen is not really the most technology advanced country in the world. They have the support of Iran, but nevertheless, they use cheap technology to strike a very developed technological country like Israel with drones and missile attacks. And of course, the use of autonomous weapons does not mean that we don't have casualties. Certainly, we have both enemy soldier and civilian casualties, sometimes quite heavy ones. Some of these autonomous weapons can be quite small. Drones can be quite small. This means that it's difficult to detect them because radars don't really work in such cases. And such weapons are not really military panacea in the sense that they have problems as well. For example, we can, in many cases, they use GPS or other GNSS systems for navigation. We can jam the reception of the GNS signal, and this means that the law can crash, or we can even hijack an autonomous weapon by the enemy. There are GNSS anti-spoofing systems like in Galileo, so there are efforts to solve these problems. What's going to be the future? The future is to have autonomous fighter jets and battleships. The technologically advanced countries like USA, for example, and China, they try to develop such things. And we can have swarms or packs of autonomous weapons in battlefield. And then this is a big challenge because handling with one autonomous weapon, autonomous drone, can be fairly easy, but if we have hundreds of them in a battlefield, then this supersedes the human ability to react. Of course, autonomous weapons have several moral and legal issues that we have to address. There are war engagement rules that are described in Jus in Bello. That's it's international law on how to engage in a military conflict, and of course, the difficulties to apply this on laws. For example, how can you define proportionality? How can you do precautions, or how can you assess military necessity when you have to target an enemy? If you do it in advance with deliberate targeting, this can be done. But if you have dynamic targeting and you have to very little decision time to identify an enemy and then strike, then it's difficult to apply the international law. It's one extra consideration that's difficult to assess. And of course, this is a very big problem, because autonomous weapons can be very sophisticated, very complex, and very fast weapons. And even experienced commanders, if they operate in such a battlefield environment with tens of drones flying around, then this situation can create mental fatigue, both to soldiers and to commanders. And there are several issues that have to be addressed when using lethal autonomous weapons. For example, who is going to decide to kill? What's going to happen in the case of malfunctioning? If you have bugs, for example, there is a possibility that you kill your own soldiers or your civilians. There is a very heavy issue on how autonomous weapons can be used by terrorists. In the past, we had suicide bombers that sacrificed their lives for their cause. Now there's no need for them to do this. They can be in a remote country. They can fly a drone, let's say, in a European city, and then detonate a bomb, and they are on the safe side. There's no need to sacrifice their lives. And we're quite lucky that we didn't see such attacks yet, but this does not mean that we're not going to see them in the future. All these issues have been identified by United Nations. We have the so-called Chemical Weapons Convention there. They discussed the law's principles, and they came with some recommendations. For example, that you cannot delegate human responsibility, that commanders have to be accountable according to the international law, but these are recommendations. Whether they're going to become obligatory, this is something to be seen. And the lethal autonomous weapons can really be a very big danger for humanity, especially if they start malfunctioning, because if there are too many of them and they operate the wrong way, then we can have very heavy casualties, both on the enemy side and on our side as well. Of course, we have other forms of advanced warfare. Cyber warfare is an important issue these days. It can have devastating results on communication, transportation, and energy infrastructure. We had such an incident in Spain recently. We don't know if it's a cyber warfare or not, probably not, but then you can see which is the effect that you can have with cyber warfare. You can just paralyze a country for a couple of days. And of course, we have biological warfare. There is a suspicion that COVID-19 was a man-made virus that was intended to be used to kill people, but who knows? There's no proof about this suspicion. There is heavy research and development in all countries, particularly the advanced ones. The global military expenditure is over, since 2022, it's over $2 trillion US dollars. It's a huge market with huge profits, of course. Technology has implication on other areas as well. For example, it can have implication on revolutions, and the revolution is a fundamental and rather sudden change of the political power, organization, and social order in favor of a new system. This typically happens when the ones that rule cannot rule anymore. and the ones that are ruled, they don't want to be ruled like this anymore. Of course, capitalism exhibited great adaptation capabilities in the last 2 centuries. It survived a number of revolutions, particularly the Russian Revolution, and the ensuing revolutions in all over the world. AI enhances this adaptability, and it seems that nowadays social evolution becomes more probable than revolution because of the use of new technologies and AI. For example, we have seen in the last 200 years a general increase in the education level of humanity, health level, and so on. This can be partly attributed to new technologies, and this can continue being so with AI. Of course, the ones that are ruled, particularly if they are authoritarian regimes, they can use AI to manipulate their population and suppress opposition. For example, they can use it to spy on civilians, or they can use mis and disinformation to disorient their population. This is done these days because we have a number of authoritarian regimes all over the world. On the other hand, artificial intelligence and information society can facilitate information spread, and this can happen also during revolutions. For example, social media have been extensively used even early enough in the Arab Spring, and it seems that also terrorist mis and disinformation spreads faster than naive messages, simple messages, because bad information usually spreads faster than honest information. And this can happen despite the fact that countries that have this that spread such types of messages don't necessarily have the top technology. For example, we see Muslim fundamentalist groups that use mis and disinformation despite the fact that their countries are not really that well advanced technologically. And they are quite effective. Now, geopolitics is the study of international politics in relation to the human and Earth geography, and AI is a major geopolitical tool. There are big debates these days that have geopolitical aspects. For example, in the European Union, most countries are in favor of AI regulation, and nowadays in the US is in favor of deregulation, and the UK is somewhere in between. Of course, there is a very big competition, primarily between the US and China, but also between Europe and the US and China as well regarding AI supremacy, because AI these days is a very important economic development tool and also military tool, as I already explained. It seems that the USA shows signs of economic and military slowdown, so AI is their big card these days because they're still strong, though China tries to catch up as well. Nowadays, with President Trump, we have MAGA policies. They have impact on US status and also on global economy as well. The fact that we even use the term "Make America Great Again" means that America is not in the best possible shape today. And whether it can regain its geopolitical excellence again and be the only superpower in the world, this is something to be seen. Now, nowadays we have multiple poles, geopolitical poles around the world, and it seems that most probably this is going to be the situation in the near future. But this is something to be seen. Generally speaking, we see that the center of gravity moves from the west to the east because we have new countries that become scientific and technological superpowers. For example, India has done a lot in development. Also, Taiwan, Korea are very strong. Japan was traditionally strong in technology. So we see a shift towards the East, and sometimes this takes also a political aspect. For example, Russia nowadays talks about Eurasianism. This means that they try to create a new axis, a technological and military one, from the west to the east, including possibly Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, maybe Turkey. That's their aspiration anyway. And also many of the authoritarian regimes originated from the East because they had such political history in the past. Nowadays we see such tendencies in the West as well. And this is another issue. It's a big issue why this happens. I have authored a book I'm going to tell you about on these issues, so you can go there and get more information. Of course, all these things are going to influence the global AI flavor, because nowadays AI is in a flux. We don't know how this is going to be developed. Is it going to be regulated? Is it going to be deregulated? Is it going to be used to spread false information, disinformation, or is it going to be used in a creative way? All these aspects are going to be influenced by geopolitics. It seems that I moved too fast. I should have said more anyway. During COVID, I decided I stayed at home and I had to do something rather than get depressed. So I investigated what's going on with artificial intelligence and the impact on society. And I have developed this 4-volume book on AI science and society. The first volume is on AI technology. This means to describe AI technology in the level that I use right now. So this means no mathematics. And it's accessible by everybody, so that everybody can understand what's large language models, for example, and what's clustering, and what's digital twin, and so on. Then the second book is on the relation between artificial intelligence and biological intelligence. This means human brain. There are some very intriguing aspects that they relate both. There is a question, for example, whether human intelligence and machine intelligence follow more or less the same rules and the same laws. These are things that are currently investigated and will be investigated in the future. And large language models play a role, can play a role in such a study, because unfortunately, neuroscience did not develop much. AI in the last 10 years has undergone at least 3 revolutions within a revolution. One 10 years ago with deep neural networks, and then we had 2 more revolutions recently on generative AI and on large language models. Neuroscience did not develop that fast. And this means that biological intelligence is a target that we don't know much about. So if your target is human intelligence and you developed artificial and general intelligence to mimic human intelligence, you don't know what is your target, what you try to mimic. Instead, you can do the opposite. You can try to figure out how large language model works, and then try possibly to check whether similar laws or rules can apply to biological intelligence. So we can reverse the mode we do research, and we start from AI and then go to neuroscience. That's the topic of book number 2. Book number 3 is about AI and society, and we have huge impact of AI on society nowadays. On basic things, for example, what's truth, what's justice, what's copyright, what's identity. These are very general concepts, as you understand, and all of them are impacted by technology and AI in particular. And then, of course, we have a confluence with social media. Why we see bad news being disseminated so fast in the internet? Why people watch fake news and fake videos, fake images? Why we see radicalization in social media? How this is influenced by technology? Is it facilitated by technology or not? What's the relation between AI and war? What's the relation between AI and philosophy or AI and society? All these topics are dealt in book number 3. And then book number 4, it's the last but not the least one, is relation between AI and environment. Typically, you know, we think that these two things are different. So we talk about AI, and then we talk about climate change and the environment. And the most thing that we can think, the best thing we can think of about the relation is to be politically nice and use AI to combat climate change. However, there are stronger relations between AI and the environment, because the challenges that we see nowadays in the environment come out of environment complexity. Environment complexity, whether it's natural environment or human-made environment, increases constantly. Also, society complexity increases constantly. The number of concepts that we handle increases constantly. The concept AI did not exist 20 or 30 years ago. Now we have tens of such concepts in our vocabulary. So then, since we have an increase on the environment, this has a fundamental impact on the environment that comes out of thermodynamics. Basically, out of our activities, we create order, and our order creates disorder in the rest of the environment. Then this disorder in the rest of the environment increases its entropy, and then we have instability, and then we have we have these climatic challenges. We have mega disasters, mega fires, and mega floods. And then we try to address them, and we increase the complexity of the environment even more by building more things, by using geoengineering approaches. And then this is now a positive feedback. It's a bad loop that has to be broken, and then which is the solution to this? Possibly AI could be a solution to this, to have better energy production and distribution management, reduce our energy needs, and hope for the best, that we can find a sustainable path for humanity. However, AI has its problems as well. It can help in energy consumption minimization, but AI needs energy itself. So this seems to be in a conflict, okay? A contradiction. Can this contradiction be solved? This is handled in book number 4. Now, all this work is being done in the framework of the International AI Doctoral Academy. This is an institution memorandum of understanding that started in Europe 4 years ago. Nowadays, we have 81 members, 61 AI universities, primarily from Europe, and 20 R&D centers, companies. Italy, by the way, is a champion in IDA because many Italian universities participate in IDA, and they are very active. That's why I'm here, actually. I have published, by the way, an article in Italian in a electronic newspaper of yours. It was not translated into Italian by myself, but by a colleague, because I don't know Italian. So we have an active cooperation with the Italian colleagues. That's very good. And Italy is a typical example because the champions on AI these days seem to be mid-range countries and mid-range universities because they see a potential in AI. And if they move fast enough, this means that they can have a better position internationally. And this is why we see that countries like the UK, like Italy, like Spain, Netherlands, Austria, take strong initiatives and invest on AI. Of course, big countries invest on AI as well. But it seems that, proportionally speaking, mid-range countries and mid-range universities are more energetic. Now, regarding IDA, it has a very large number of lecturers. We develop IDA courses. And so this course here is a joint CPIA and IDA course. We deliver excellence lectures with very good participation. And we also collect AI in the educational resources. If you belong to a university, your university can become an AIDA member because membership is at an institution level. This means that your rector or company director or R&D center director has to agree that this institution, your institution, becomes an AIDA member. But it's possible and it's for free. Right now, we have very good coverage of Europe, and we started having also international member participation as well. IDA is a voluntary organization, and we organize summer schools. And this year, we try to organize a hybrid event, which is on education, AI education, primarily. So this means that it's a merge between summer school and symposium. We have 17 cutting-edge invited lectures, and within this week, that's 14th to the 18th of July this year, we offer 31 short courses and tutorials lasting half a day or 1 day on many different aspects. Many of them are on AI core topics. Other ones are on AI applications or AI skill development. And many of these courses are on ethical issues, social issues, educational issues, and so on. So if you want, you can go to this webpage and register. Registration is quite inexpensive, I would say, and we offer scholarship opportunities. By the way, the lecturers are top AI researchers worldwide. So many of them have more than 100,000 citations, which is a huge number in terms of international recognition. So we try to deliver the best possible AI education, because this is something that is much needed. And participation in this event can be local. You can come here in Thessaloniki, Greece, and Thessaloniki and the surrounding area is very beautiful in July. So you're going to enjoy both the event and possibly some of your vacations, or you can join remotely at a reduced registration rate. So that's all on my side. I wonder if there are any questions. If there are any questions, it's difficult for me to follow the whatever you write on comments. Please try to voice up your questions. Let me stop sharing my screen. Where can I get my check your comments? Anyway, are there any questions? So there is silence. Let me. There is a question whether AI is an existential risk. Well, it's a very good question. It's a general one. Why AI should be an existential risk? And who is at risk? Right now we're Homo sapiens, right? But in the past, before tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years, there was no Homo sapiens. There were Neanderthal people and so on, and then Homo sapiens appears. Appeared. Who says that Homo sapiens is the end of the world? It's the end of the evolution. The evolution continues. And we don't know what's in store in the future. In the past, we had the so-called Darwinian or biological evolution that was slow, right? But we had also evolution by design. If you decide to have a particular partner, then this means that you influence your future. If you decide to have medical treatment, this means that you design to modify your future and the future of the humanity through medicine. So that evolution by design was done in the past as well. It was done by animals as well, oddly enough. Nowadays, though, AI and various other tools like autonomous systems, for example, they give us the opportunity to accelerate evolution by design. For example, we can have implants, not only in the human body, but possibly in the human brain. And those implants need not be electronic, it can be biological implants. And in the future, we're going to see a symbiosis between humans and machines. Maybe we can have different types of humanoids that are better than humans. For example, we can have implants that give us GPS opportunities. Right now, we're quite bad in terms of localizing ourselves. Cars have a much better localization through GPS. Maybe we can have such a thing in the future. Birds, for example, they have the migratory birds have a good sense of orientation. Maybe we can have such a sense of orientation in the future as well. Is it going to be better? Is it going to be an extinction of the human race? I don't think so. It's going to be just a very fast evolution. If we can adapt, then maybe we're going to be very very happy about these new developments. And after all these things are human AI and robots. They are human inventions. Why should they necessarily be against us? They can be our friends. However, this does not mean that we don't have any dangers. We can indeed have dangers if things go wrong. If, for example, we live in a deregulated environment, and if we don't address misinformation, disinformation, then we're going to have problems in democracy. Can you tell me how to? I don't use much this software. Can you tell me how I can say your comments? So I don't, because you send me comments, but I don't know how to have a look at them. Just a moment.
In the bottom to the right, there is like an option, show chat or hide chat. I think that.
Well, yeah, okay, but I don't see this thing.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, now I see them. Okay, thank you very much. So let's start from the end. Well, Federico thinks that AI is clearly an existential threat. As I've told you, I have my doubts on this, whether it's an existential risk. It depends on how you define it. If we are talking about human-machine symbiosis, and if we talk about new types of humanoids that are better than current Homo sapiens, then I don't see any risk, unless we don't address the immediate problem, because things can go wrong. For example, an important issue is weapons. If we don't address the situation properly and some weapons malfunction, they can be a real threat and immediate threat. For example, malfunction in weapons can be threat to everybody. And it's not only threats that happen now. Imagine, for example, such a lethal weapon that is autonomous, it malfunctions, and it stays somewhere in the bottom of the sea, and then it explodes after 20 years from now because it's triggered somehow, because it does not work well. This is, as we understand, it's a very important this is a very important issue. We have to be very careful on how we develop military technology, intelligent military technology, and who has access to this technology. There's somebody that talks about Article 9. There are too many questions now. The last one is about moving the center of gravity to the east. There are risks that geopolitical risks regarding the technology flow, because it is not really a matter of east and west. It's a matter of who has access to this this technology. If it's authoritarian regimes that have access to this technology, no matter if they are in the east or in the west, then there is a very potential threat. Very important threat in their hands against their own people, but also against other countries. And this cannot be easily regulated, because we see nowadays that, for example, USA tries to prohibit technology flow towards China. They're not very good at it, because it's simply not that easy to stop the technology and knowledge flow. When we talk about threats, threats are not necessarily physical. Certainly, threats can be psychological, or better. We should better talk about social threats. Indeed, there are many social threats because we see what has happened in social media, for example. They have not been regulated, and now it's. They lead to a simply called brain rot to people that cannot handle this. This means to juniors or to other people that are not that strong. If this happens in AI, then we have a confluence of AI and social media, and we can only see such social threats emerging. We already see this. We see that irrational thinking, for example, appears in many countries in the West as well. There are people that they don't believe in vaccination. There are people that bathe into polluted rivers, as it happened these days with the Minister of Health in the US, believe it or not. Nothing good is going to come out of this. And of course, this also leads to other dangers, because, for example, this leads to technophobia. Basically, people that cannot understand things, they are afraid of the unknown. They are bombarded 7 days a week, 24 hours, even in their bedroom, with information that they cannot digest, and they start being afraid. So this is a very good substrate for authoritarianism, and it's very bad for the society, because nothing good is going to come out of fear. Let me check. Well, regarding what's going to happen in the future, it's difficult to predict. There are things that I have predicted in my book. My book, by the way, has been published before the last wave of AI revolution. And in there, I predicted that the metaverse is going to fail. At that time, in 2021, metaverse was at its peak, and I was correct. But on the other hand, I could not predict that LLMs would have such a big development. That's the situation right now. It's difficult to predict what's going to happen even in the near future. So in this sense, people saying that we're going to have artificial generalized intelligence in the next 5 years or 10 years, to me, it does not make sense. First of all, there's no definition exactly of what's artificial generalized intelligence. We don't know what human intelligence is, and we don't know. And the artificial generalized intelligence is not only text; it's many other things. It's physical intelligence, for example. Our consciousness, believe it or not, is based on our human body, is based on our guts. There is a psychological theory on this. Machines don't have any sense of body right now or physical intelligence. Robots have some sense, but very little sense. So how can we develop generalized intelligence without having physical intelligence? Let me check about other questions. Regarding the AI Act, it's a nice and politically correct initiative on behalf of the European Union. Whether it's going to deliver or not, that's another story. Because AI Act, in my view, is based on definitions that even the definition of AI can be contested. That the definition that they use in the AI Act, and the AI Act is punitive and is risk-based, but risk cannot be quantified. If risk is not quantified, then how can you say that something is risky or not? Recommendation technology, for example, is risky when you use it for some social purposes, and it's not considered risky when you use it in platforms like Tinder, but it's the same technology. So once you base the entire AI Act on the concept of risk that is not quantifiable, maybe, if it's contested in the court, then it can fail, and then this is going to be disaster. Not only this, also GDPR and other European initiatives tend to be punitive in the sense that they say that you are a big company, if you do wrong things, then I'm going to punish you, okay? This is a way to do things. It's politically correct, but there is another way to do things. For example, let's suppose that the company wants private data for training its models. Then you can develop a framework where if somebody wants to use my data for training its models, then you pay me, let's say, 1/10 of a cent per image of mine, and then I get some money. And then they get my consent in using this data, and we develop an AI market that's healthy. And it's not punitive. So there are other ways to address the AI market. Things move very fast, and regulatory initiatives like the AI Act can become obsolete very fast, or they can fail in court. There's a question about AI and energy needs. AI has huge energy needs, but there are solutions to this, because we can develop AI technologies that are less energy hungry. However, that was not the priority of several major players in the US, because they wanted bigger investments, and they did not care. They were interested about investments and about getting rich rather than using less energy to build their models. it's doable. We can have energy-friendly AI, but we're not there yet. Nevertheless, the conflict between AI energy needs and the use of AI as an energy saving tool exists. We have a conflict there. But then this can become a nice mathematical problem for any of you that has mathematical knowledge. You can create a macroeconomic model with several parameters. One of them is the AI energy needs. Another of them could be the AI impact on productivity. And then you can check whether we can find a path, a sustainable path. This means that under these and these and these conditions, yes, we can find a sustainable path. Otherwise, we don't. We go towards disaster as we do it right now. So it's an interesting research topic in the confluence between technology and macroeconomics. If any of you is interested in these things, send me a message, because I try to find somebody to work on this topic. I don't know if there is any other. Whether AI has an epistemic and knowledge generative power. Right now, AI does not generate knowledge. There are no AI tools that write research papers, for example, unless you want to use LLMs to cheat and write research-like papers, okay? However, there are signs that we can use AI to generate content. Whether this is knowledge or not, that's another story. For example, if we generate a new work of art, and we do it these days with generative AI, is this knowledge generation or not? Large language models have not been developed to do reasoning. Yet they started fine-tuning these models towards doing reasoning. The results are not excellent yet, but they are there. So in the future, we can have reasoning LLMs that can be fine-tuned for certain domains. For example, mathematics. Whether they're going to be capable to develop knowledge or not, this is something that we don't know right now. We can only speculate. Any other question? If there is no other question, I would like to thank you very much. You are welcome to join our summer school in July here in Thessaloniki. Possibly I can meet some of you in person. And thank you very much for attending this lecture. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.